for us, but an opportunity nonetheless to bring folks together in a little different capacity and take one of, I think, one of our favorite pieces from our Hockey Helps the Homeless Barrie tournament and our draft night itself and our hot stove. And we've been fortunate to be joined tonight by obviously Sara from Busby. We've got Michael Gartner who's going to join us as well, and then we're going to hear from Ron Hoggarth who's got a bit of a PowerPoint presentation, and we'll have the opportunity to share some stories with us tonight. In essence, I want to thank everybody again for joining us, for being game changers in the fight to end homelessness in Barrie. Thank you for your support to date, joining us tonight. And certainly we've got a couple more weeks left here with the Canada Life Cup and the campaign ending on March the 31st. So our work is not done by any means, but hope that we can still see some more help come forward in the next couple of weeks for our partners at Redwood and Busby. And again, I'm just doing a quick hello on behalf of Hockey Helps the Homeless, but a sincere thank you to everybody in Barrie who's taking part tonight, but even to those that may not be on the phone, have registered, haven't registered, have supported us in past. We are incredibly fortunate to have the support of this great community surrounding our two partner beneficiaries. With that, I would like to introduce the chair of our Hockey Helps the Homeless Barrie Local Organizing Committee, Mr. Dave McCullough, who many of you on the call likely know, to kick off our evening. So David, off to you, sir.
Great, thank you, Scotty, and thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. Thank you to the Barrie Committee for all their efforts, and our local sponsors. We have great sponsors within this community, and they all stepped up again this year. Special thank you to the national founding sponsor, Canada Life. You know, they put a lot of time and effort into this and provide some funding, and we couldn't do this without them, and we appreciate their support right across Canada, helping with the cause. So, and the players and those donors that support the players, you're what make it happen, and those dollars are so important to us. The Busby and Redwood, two great organizations within our community, providing a service that is definitely needed. Unfortunately, the demand is growing, and through a pandemic, stress right to the limits. Having worked with both Tim, Rhonda, and Sara, I know how much time and effort they put into this. And we weren't going to let a pandemic get in the way. And it was great to see that everybody stepped it up, and we're well on our way. You know, everyone should be very proud of where we're at right now. A lot different than having a live event. Everybody enjoying each other's company, but I'm seeing more people register every day, and the funds are starting to grow, and we appreciate that. What we're going to do, we're going through the presentation tonight, and I'm hoping that people will have some questions and or comments. I would like to suggest after we go through and finish up with Ron, that any questions that you may have, that you would just direct them on the chat line, and Laura or Scott will then read them out accordingly at the end. So with that being said, I would like to introduce one of my very best friends and NHL Hall of Famer and honorary chair of Hockey Helps the Homeless, Mr. Michael Gartner.
Well, thank you, David. I appreciate that. And I would only echo your comments and go back. I think that anybody that's been on this call and have heard me talk about Hockey Helps the Homeless has heard me say on more than one occasions, and I apologize, Scott, because you've heard it probably more than anybody, and that is that Hockey Helps the Homeless is the best hockey tournament from a pros perspective, which I'm sure from what I gather and have talked to different guys about, from a participant perspective, of just such a great event. First of all, it's extremely well run. Right from the time that you start to sign up to the time you drop your bag at the curb to the time that you go in and your sweater's there and towels and everything is in your dressing room ready to go, and right through to the on-ice product. And I think that Barrie has an unbelievable competitive field that we put on the ice every time that we have done it over the last number of years. And when you take that kind of a great approach to how to put on a tournament, and you marry that with making and allowing the funds that are raised to stay in the communities that these tournaments go on. So in our case in Barrie, really does make a huge difference. And we have a real affinity for our two local charities that we help out with, Redwood Park Communities and the Busby Street Center. And when we started talking about the tournament during COVID, back in the late summer, early fall, I think it was everybody's desire to try to have an in-person tournament, but it became very apparent that there just wasn't going to be a chance that we were going to be able to have that. And so there was a lot of discussion about it. And the one thing that we knew that when we were talking about it, the one thing that was not an option, and it was not an option to do nothing. So we were either going to have a tournament, which seemed very unlikely, or we were going to do exactly what we're doing right now. And we decided to go this route, and it's been quite a journey in that I think Dave McCullough and the entire committee has done a great job in pulling together a lot of interest. And as we said that it wasn't an option for us to do nothing, what we found out too, as we started to talk to people in our community, it was not an option for them to do nothing either. And so we found ourselves in a position where we're doing this virtually, and it's going to be a great success, because although hockey can't be played right now from a recreational standpoint, the needs in our community remain and continue, and actually are even greater than they were before. So I'm very, very happy that we continued this. Redwood Park Communities has been a great local charity for us. And I went on their website just to see exactly what their statement was: safe, affordable, hopeful housing. And that's just a great illustration of what we're trying to do. And then the other one is one that's very familiar to us, and that is the Busby Street Center. And so I would just like to take this opportunity to thank them, both those organizations, so much. And in particular, now as I'm going to introduce the executive director of the Busby Street Center, Sara Peddle, and Sarah's going to say a few words. So Sara, welcome, and looking forward to hearing from you.
Thanks so much, Mike. I'm excited to be here to just touch base with people, because COVID is just such a wonderful place right now when you don't get to connect with people. You know, the Hockey Helps the Homeless tournament is something we look forward to every year. You know, we work in a lot of turmoil and crisis and sad stories, but also good stories. So when we look forward to tournaments like the Hockey Helps the Homeless, where we have the community behind us, it's just, you know, it's really sad this year that we can't get together in person, but to know that this group of people are still out there rooting for us is just really touching. And so I'm just really happy to be here. This time, just a little over this time last year, we were in an arena and celebrating another great year of Hockey Helps the Homeless. And then I think a week later, everything changed for us all, and Busby Center included in that. It's been a really rough year in terms of people that are experiencing homelessness in our community. On March 20th of last year, we realized that the capacity that we were seeing in our center, so our usual capacity at the 88 Mulcaster drop-in location, we were seeing about 70 people a night. And that would be shoulder to shoulder. So we realized that we couldn't facilitate out of that facility anymore. And we actually had to move to a local hotel. And so March 20th at 1 o'clock, we got the approval from the government to make the move, to make sure that people we were able to create safe spaces for people. And we got them over to the hotel, and we literally moved all 70 people by 9 o'clock that night on March 20th. So fed them and had them in safe rooms, safe distance from each other, and just making sure that they were all safe. So that was day one. And it's been a journey ever since. We have now, we've co-located with Elizabeth Fry Society, which is the women's shelter in Barrie, in the hotel that we have. We've actually leased the whole hotel, all 88 rooms. And between our shelter and the Elizabeth Fry, we have over 120 people that we are serving each night. And there is never a bed empty, and unfortunately a waiting list beyond my wildest dreams in the 13 years I've been doing this. The need continues to grow. We've actually had to open our 88 Mulcaster space on top of the fact that we have the hotels running. So we have people coming in there. We have approximately 9 people that we can facilitate there each night. And then a second location of a hotel that we've also now opened. So in total, you know, we're looking at about 140 people that we're helping to keep sheltered each night in the city of Barrie. And then on top of that, our outreach team is out in the community seeing another 40 individuals who are unsheltered and who have been unsheltered most of the winter. So the need has gone from, you know, already a very grave situation to a devastating situation through COVID. You know, we're all experiencing, you know, the challenges of COVID in our own personal lives, but watching the devastation that's happening within the homeless serving sector has been very trying. We went from 20 staff to over 80 staff in the last so many months because the need again was so great. We have not a heck of a lot of outflow to homes either. Tim and his crew are trying really hard. We're fortunate that Redwood and Busby Center have Lucy's Place together, where we're housing 19 individuals that had been experiencing chronic homelessness. But I think Tim would agree with me that we could probably build, you know, 10 to 20 of those and we still wouldn't be able to facilitate the need that we're seeing. But it also explains why Tim and I work so hard to make sure that we find those solutions, because they are working. We have a great program there. You know, I would love to be telling you fantastic stories right now, but I really wanted to give you the reality of what's happening, because it's, you know, right now what I'm experiencing every day, watching people come into homelessness, experiencing mental health and trauma and severe addiction. Our team are on a daily basis reversing overdose, sometimes multiple times a day. We've lost over 50 people this year between overdose and other ailments. So it's just not been a great year for all of these things. We want to see solutions, and we're of course staying positive and hopeful and focused. But what we've actually seen coming through this the pandemic is absolutely devastating. We continue to look at different solutions-based scenarios. You know, we're always trying to make sure that people have every opportunity that they can. We've had 6 people go to treatment, so that's a win. Those are the small wins we love to celebrate. You know, we've had many people get into housing, but just not enough. The inflow to the homelessness services is at such a rapid speed we can't keep up. So we hope that over the next while, you know, the government does hear us and starts to put some appropriate funding together to build some appropriate spaces. And again, Tim's team is all over that. I know that. I trust that. You know, but it's people like you that help us with those initiatives too, because we can't always rely on just government. And we know that. So we are so thankful for everything that the Hockey Helps the Homeless in general, like in the bigger picture, does for us. But this particular, what I like to call Barrie Hockey Helps the Homeless family, have been instrumental in keeping us hopeful and keeping us going each day. You know, Dave alone, you know, in the midst of the beginning of the pandemic, and we didn't know where we were going to get PPE. And, you know, I've got all these staff looking at me like, you know, should I even be here? Because, you know, I'm putting my family at risk. And Dave called me up and said, I'm going to help you find some PPE. And, you know, that was massive. He brought me a whole bunch of goggles and masks and, you know, all these things, and, you know, rallied his friends to make sure that we had that protection. And that meant so much, because it was scary in the beginning. You know, those beginning days where everything was shut down and we're in a hotel, and it was kind of like an eerie movie. There was nobody even out on the streets, no cars. And, having Dave reach out and say, hey, I can help you here, meant so much. And so, I really do look at this as a family. And, I just really appreciate everything that this particular committee does for Busby Center in Redwood, also for your community and all the participants, all the sponsors. I don't know if people really understand the depth of your support, especially during this year, and the years to come. We know that coming out of this pandemic, we're going to have to do things differently, and we need to really make sure that everybody has a place to go. And at Busby Center, we just really want to focus on ensuring that we don't want to be busy. Let's put it that way. We would really like to put ourselves in a business. We just want to make sure that everybody that comes through our doors is respected and valued. Everybody is a somebody at Busby Center, and we really, really, truly believe that. And everybody does deserve a home. So we want to make sure that every day we work towards that. So, again, the support that we get from this group and, and our partners at Redwood, and just everybody in the community has been absolutely imperative to make sure that we get through this year, but also to make sure that we don't get too discouraged in all of this, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. There will be housing for people. There will be support for people, and we won't have to keep losing people to not only the pandemic, but to overdose and a lack of medical attention just in general who are experiencing homelessness. So I, again, just thank you all so much. And I'm absolutely honored to be part of this tonight and be part of the Hockey Helps the Homeless family. And I thank all of you for your leadership, and, just keep as positive as we can. And I wish you all safety and wellness as we go through this.
Sara, thank you very much for sharing and giving us an update. I did have the opportunity, I have had the opportunity to witness what's going on in the front lines by coming over to see you at the hotel there, and also Tim and Rhonda at Lucy's place. And it's a great community, and it was easy to get that PPE. You just have to make a couple phone calls, which we did, to some people we know on the inside who knows a guy who knows a guy. The next thing you know, we have a pickup truck full of the stuff, and we put it to good use. And I know even one of our sponsors, Cintas, called me and said, Dave, we have some skids of gloves here. Can we put these to use? And we had them dropped off at Lucy's place, and they were distributed accordingly. So the community really rallied, and you make it easy for us to do what we're doing to help you, because we see the passion that you and Tim and Rhonda have. And just so everybody knows, Sara's not just looking after Busby. She had a couple extra minutes every day, so she's actually taken on the role up in Collingwood too, to help them. So this girl is going 24/7. I don't know that you've had a half a day off in the last 12 months, have you? No, you haven't. I know you haven't.
No, but it's worth it. I know absolutely worth it.
and we appreciate it. And when I said that you guys are pushed to the limit, it was definitely understated. I didn't realize your staff has grown to the degree it's grown, and that's only to help accommodate the way the need has grown as much as it has in this community. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
So next, we have a special guest, and this gentleman is no stranger to our community. He lends his name often and his time often to many events. Easter Seals and Rotary, to name a few. And when we put the call out, he put up his hand and said, absolutely, what do you need me to do? This gentleman, I should use that term loosely, I think, Gartz? This gentleman, 1,190 games, 150 Stanley Cup games, 3 All-Star games, and 23 years of officiating at the pro hockey level. Very good friend of ours, and a great friend of the community, and very community minded. Our good friend, Mr. Ron Hoggarth. Hoagie, you're on.
Well, thank you, David. First of all, I want to thank you guys very much. You know what, Barrie is one of the greatest communities. well, I've traveled all across North America for, the 23 years. And then I traveled with the Hockey Legends, the Hockey NHL Hall of Fame tour. And, this is one of the best community-minded cities and the whole area that I really know of, that I'm very proud to be, part of it and from here. I got to commend you guys. What a wonderful job. I think we're all COVID fatigued. I think that you hear this all the time, but you know what? We just can't give up. There's so many causes that now and charities that are requiring money, and you pick up the paper and the businesses are going downhill. And so I really have to compliment everybody here who's donating money, donating their time, and working for such a good cause, because we're all fatigued. And I think everybody must be retired or very tired, because if they bring a referee on and if people actually like to hear me speak, then we are really tired, I think. So what I wanted to do tonight, Laura, is maybe just go back. Everybody, will tell some of the stories. I had some great times in the NHL. It was being on the ice with not some of the greatest players of all times, and. So it's as we come up with this, that one of the first ones, we'll see that the story. That's not long ago when I was actually skinny and had hair, but players always ask me, what do the players say to each other on the ice? And I think two of the greatest guys that I had was Dave the Tiger Williams. We go to the next one, Laura. That I got to travel with Tiger during the Hall of Fame tour, and you really never know. But I think one of the best times in the old Broad Street Bully days, we've got Dave Tiger with Elise, with Dave the Hammer Schultz, and the two of them are battling back and forth. And Hammer says to David, Dave, you got an IQ of 11. You're a dummy. What the old story? Why do you put the helmet on cement? And Tiger says, "Yeah, Tiger. Yes, Hammer. Why don't you come on over here and join me in the penalty box, and we can make it an even dozen." So Tiger was one of the best guys that I ever knew. The next one we've got, Laura, is we go on to the next story. There's I got to speak at this was in the induction of the Philadelphia Flyers, and they inducted Mr. Dave the Hammer Schultz and now I'm losing it. The other one, Mad Dog Kelly. Yeah, Mad Dog Kelly, and I got to really had a great time. I got up and spoke. They have at the Borgata, and I made Schultz wear the sweater. I turn around and here he's got the sweater over the head, throwing it down. But it was a good time. This one, Mike, I don't remember you. I was thinking you were in Washington at the time, but this is probably the lowest point in my career. And I speak down sometimes to high schools and some groups and children or boys and girls. And I say, you know what? If you're wrong, admit it. Absolutely make a mistake. And it's too bad that we can't go on here with you, but YouTube at some time. YouTube this game, the Super Bowl Sunday, January 31st, 1991, Pittsburgh Penguins at Washington. And Mario comes on the ice, and as you can see this one, he says, Hoagie, we got a party tonight in Pittsburgh, Super Bowl party. Put your whistle in the pocket. So I did. And probably the biggest mistake of my career when you do, it was awful. It really was. I let the game deteriorate. Went downhill. They were hooking, they were holding back in those days. I think, Mike, you remember that. And so what about the halfway through the second period, I said to Mario, I want you to go and talk to your coach, Scotty Bowman. This has got out of hand, and I'm going to have to start pulling this down. And Mario just quickly turned to me and he said, Hoagie, not my job. Oh, perfect. So I went to, I looked around, and there was Paul Coffey was on at the time, and the great guy. I said, Coff, I need some help here. I need you to go talk to Scotty and see if you can settle this situation down for me. And he said, I'd love to, Hoagie. He said, one problem, I'm in a contract dispute and I haven't talked to that jerk in 3 months. So finally, Larry Murphy said, Hoagie, I'll talk, but I had lost it. And, I hadn't admitted that I had lost it. Well, in the third period, Mario Lemieux was coming down the ice. And Kelly Miller, as a matter of fact, was playing with Washington. I don't think that I've seen a tackle in the NFL or a steer being roped to the ice more than Mario did when he got pulled down, and I didn't call it. It goes down the ice, and Jaromir Jagr, this was Jaramir's first year. He was kind of a hot shot, and he took my feet, flipped me right on my rear end, up in the ice, and down the corner I go. And so this game, I kick out Mario Lemieux, Kevin Stevens, Jaromir Jagr, Ulf Samuelsson, threw them all out of the game. And now I get some real problems. I headed off. Actually, it was a couple days. I was heading to Florida, and in the papers, Mario says it's nothing but a garage league. I had death threats at my house. It was just an absolute mistake, and that I never admitted it. But it was 3 weeks later, I had the opportunity. I'm in Los Angeles. The Kings are playing, and Wayne Gretzky is facing off with Mario at center ice. And Wayne says to me, Hoagie, it was all in the papers. Have you and Mario kissed and made up? And I says, well, Mario says, Hoagie, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have called it a garage league. But he says, I called you fat and slow, and that's true. So we'll stick with that. And just like that, Wayne turned and said, Hoagie, he says, the good part about this is here we are in Los Angeles, Hollywood. And between the three of us, we're a little over $12 million they're paying us. He says, yeah, I'm getting 8, Mario's getting 4, and you're the little over, Hoagie. So, it was a good time, kind of good thing. But when I tell everybody, if you get a chance, you make a mistake, own up to it, because it compounded, absolutely compounded. The next one, what do we got? The next one, Laura, I think was Mr. Cherry, Don Cherry, I think it is.
And the slide doesn't want me to go next.
Slide doesn't want me to go next?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, so this is one of my buddies. This was one of the games that we did in Barrie, and everybody asked me, what about Don? What about some of the stories? I said, well, he was so boisterous all the time, and when he got going on the bench, you never really know what he was going to say. And at the end of the first in Boston, the Boston Gardens, the Bruins would leave the ice behind their bench, but we actually had to go right through their bench to get to our dressing room. And I could see the period's over. I can see him standing there. He's waiting and waiting and waiting. I'm going, what's he going to say? He says, no, come here, Hoagie. Come here. I got to talk to you. Quick, come here. And I says, okay, what do you want? He says, no, it's for your safety. That's the only thing, your safety. I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, the Zamboni just come on the ice, and you haven't seen anything at all in the first period. So I wanted to make sure that it didn't run you down. But, he was a good guy. His coaching, sometimes we worried about it, but he was a colorful guy. But, the game has changed. We got the next one, and Nora. So this one is one of the highlights that I've done. And I got to spend some time with Wayne at his fantasy camp and Walter over the last couple of years. But this is October 15th, 1989. And Wayne is about to break Gordie Howe's record. And I've seen the game now. They've televised it quite a bit on TSN, the highlights. And it was a fun time to be there. But what I did was, all through the game, I stuck real close to Wayne. And every time I tried to he was around the net, I was right beside him. He was in the corner, I was right beside him. And finally, he used the F word, and he said, Hoagie, get that out of the way. And I said, no, Wayne, you're going to get the point, and I'm in the picture. And that's a picture I've got hanging in my office, and I see it all the time. So it's a fun time. I got great stories about Walter. We at the fantasy camp, Walter would be there, and he was such an interesting man. He loved everybody. He had great stories, and but I have never been, but apparently where Wayne grew up in his house, there's an absolute the trophies. It's a museum that he's got in his basement, and you could just go up and knock on the door, and Walter would let you in with no problem. And there's a minor hockey, a Bantam or Pee Wee, I'm not sure what it is, a tournament that they have in Brampton that they have, I think it's January. And there would be actually busloads of kids would come in, stop, and they come up to the door, and Walter will let them in. And Wayne's brother, Brent, is actually an OPP officer. And he said, I go here one time, there's 65 people in the basement, and Walter's showing them all this memorabilia, Wayne sticks and jerseys, and they're worth a lot of money. So the next year, and this is what Walter was telling me, he says, I can't believe these kids, they used to come to my house, times have changed. They're not the same as it was before. And Brad is sitting there, says, yeah, we had 2 OPP cruisers sitting on each end of the street. Because there's not a chance that we could let him in. So great man. Sorry to see Walter go at this time. The next one, Laura, what do we got? That's Wayne. Wayne was asking me out for dinner. I think this was the Battle of Alberta that we used to have. And just to let everybody know, how the times have changed. And Mike, I'm sure we had a lot of the battles going on, but we would have lots of nights, Edmonton and Calgary, and I would have 300 minutes in penalties, if you can believe it. Today, I think I was looking at the highlights the other night. I think there was maybe 1 or 2 penalties. The game has changed dramatically. It's changed for the better. I really feel I came through the Broad Street Bully days when one time we would work in the American Hockey League, and I was in the American League. Then we would go up and work the Flyers, and the Richmond Robins, excuse me, were the Flyers alumni or affiliate rather, and Detroit had a Norfolk. I had a game. I had 5 bench emptyings in one game. The next night I go and have the Flyers in St. Louis in Philadelphia. I had 2 bench emptyings. So, I mean, the game has changed, and it's a whole lot for the better. And I really love to watch it. So, but this was I'm sure that Wayne was telling me that he wanted to go to dinner there somewhere. Great guy, great athlete. The next one we got. Oh, this another one. The Wayne had in his I guess his fantasy camp, and my parents brought me up this way, and I try to live my life the best I can with this. And it's Wayne absolutely agrees, is that you treat others as you would like to be treated. And I think with events like this that you've got going on tonight, and the monies that are being raised for the shelters. Really and truly, if we all lived this, what a better world it would be, to treat others. If you want to be a jerk, guess what? People are going to treat you like that way. But, if you have time for others, and you have time to share with others, and to do the good deeds, I think what a better world this we would live in. Next one, Laura. That's it. So I think, I'm trying to count down the time here that you've got. And I can tell you one more story that I tried to get along with the players as much as possible. And management didn't like me. I was on the negotiating committee for a number of years, negotiating the contracts, but the players, I really wasn't anybody that I didn't get along with on the ice. You treat people great, they treat you back. But it was the Broughton family, Aaron Broughton and Neil Broughton. We had actually given him a lifer. I said, I don't want to talk to you on the ice or off the ice. And it's one night, this is back when the Leafs weren't very good. and they were bad, but the Quebec Nordiques were even worse. And I've got a game at Maple Leaf Gardens between Toronto Maple Leafs and the Quebec Nordiques. And I said, this is going to be a breeze. I'm going to get out of here. No problem. 10 minutes into the game, you know, they're put in the corner, they're pushing and they're shoving. Back in those days, that would happen. And I said, oh, that's it. So I turned to all the players. I said, tell you what, guys, I'm going to pick the best player out here on the ice, and I'm going to toss him out of the game. Everybody understand? Well, Aaron Broughton, who's was playing for the Quebec Nordiques at the time, he says, Hoagie, he says, I know I'm not supposed to speak to you, but I have a question. He says, where are you going to find a good player out here tonight? So it was a good time. It was a great career. I got to watch, when I see Mike Gartner, I see him all the time in Washington. A number of times, I remember Boxing Day one year, your father-in-law was down busy, and he came into my dressing room. It was kind of nice to see somebody. So it's a very small world. And, you know, still Mike is, I consider him one of the greatest skaters of all time. I never really saw Mike's face for a long time because all of you just saw him was the back of the sweater when I went up and down the ice. But, you know, to give your time, Mike, really appreciate what you do. And to Dave and to everybody else, to all your sponsors, a big, you know, round of applause goes out to you because our community always needs these events. And it just totally, absolutely blows me away how everybody steps up. And all you participants who are in watching tonight, I think give yourselves a big, some kudos to it. You know, I always say when I'm speaking, a round of applause, because that's really what you need for stepping up and doing this. So I hope that some of these stories were okay. It was a great career that I had. Hockey is different. Referees are different. I tell everybody I created the two-man system actually years ago. I was so slow. I used to just wait in the one end, and I tell the goaltender they'll be right back. So it was a great career, a lot of fun, and try to keep this thing on time. So thanks for having me, and I appreciate the time to see everybody. I look, there's a lot of faces in the gallery that I recognize. So stay safe. Spring is coming. We don't have to stay warm anymore. And there's light at the end of the tunnel, and we'll get through this. And thanks again for, you know, contributing to such a good cause.
Hoagie, let me just pick up on a couple of things that you said, David, before you jump in. So Hoagie, it was always so fun because I knew Hoagie was from Barrie, I was from Barrie, and so, you know, stuff that you can't do now. So the odd time if I knew Hoagie was reffing, as I'm coming into the building, I'd go past the referee's room, I'd knock on the door, I'd open the door, the guys would be in there, I'd say hi to Hoagie, and we chat a little bit. Like you can't do that now. Like you just can't do stuff like that. And then I remember one time, and I'm sure Ron doesn't remember this, but I do. It was one of the first times I played at Maple Leaf Gardens when I was with Washington. And I remember going up to Hoagie before the game, kind of in warm up before it starts, and skating around. I said, Hoagie, so I'm a little nervous. Make me look good out here. He says, I'll tell you what, I'll make you look good if you make me look good. I said, works for me. And back then, you know, you really had a rapport with the referees, and you could talk to them, and you knew that they had control of the game, and it was the one referee system. And you know, you always knew that they had a tough job to do, but you always kind of respected where they were. And I always like to have at least a dialogue or relationship with a ref. And oftentimes, you know, when you did have that relationship, if you'd go up to a referee after you think it was a bad call, he'd at least give you his opinion. And very, very so often, every few years, a guy would say, you know what, I screwed up. I made a mistake on that one. And you kind of go, okay, well, what else can you do? The guy's admitted to a mistake, and maybe he'll cut your break at another time. But Hoagie, those were fun times. I got to tell you, you saw the worst of the bench clearing brawls. I got in there just as they were starting to clean it up. And I got to tell you, I don't miss it at all. One of the worst ones I saw, though, when you talk about bench clearing brawls, I was playing the one year I played in Minnesota in the old Norris division. They used to call it the Chuck Norris division. Mm-hmm. And so I'm playing for Minnesota. We're playing in the Chicago Stadium, and we got a bunch of tough guys. We got Shane Churla, Basil McRae. We have Mark Tenorti. And in Chicago, you know, there's Bobby McGill, and there's there's Dave Manson. And so we're out there in warm up, and, you know, warm up at the Chicago Stadium, there's half the place is full at that time during warm up. And, you know, you're dressing everybody, right? You can only dress 20 guys for the game, but for the warm up, you got 25 guys dressed. And so the warm up's kind of going on, and all of a sudden, you know, we usually have a couple of guys what we call border patrol. Like there'd be guys right on the one side of the red line and some guys on the other side of the red line. No one dared cross that red line, but, you know, you go around, a couple of F-bombs start getting thrown around, and then all of a sudden you see a couple of pucks start flying. And if a puck starts flying one way, it starts flying the other way. Well, before we know it, we are in a 25-man free-for-all in the warm-up. There's referees. There's not even any referees anywhere around. And so, I mean, I'm looking around and everybody's kind of throwing punches. I'm looking, where's Denny Savard? I got to grab Denny Savard. So I grab onto Denny Savard, and Shane Churla's throwing him, and there's like about 6 fights going on. All of a sudden, the referees, I don't even know who is reffing, but guys were coming up with just their pants on because they barely had their skates on. And then all of a sudden, a couple of policemen came on the ice, and then the 2 coaches get on there. Pierre Paget and Mike Keenan are out grabbing guys on the ice, and the game hasn't even started yet. So I got to tell you, I don't miss that. I just don't.
There was many a night like that. Many a night.
Oh man.
Good story. Ron, I was going to ask you, I think you answered the question about, the one-man system and calling the goals. I noticed the other day they had that game on that you were talking about with Wayne Gretzky, kind of, with Walter passing away. And I said to Zach, watch Hoagie closely. He's in Gretzky's way the whole time. And you were. So it got me thinking, then you would point to the guy that scored the goal versus pointing to the net. With the 2-man system, you point to the net. So I'm wondering when Gart scored 708 goals. So you obviously saw some of them. I just wondered where you were on the ice in a 1-man system. Like with Gart's speed, were you about at the red line as he was letting it go at the hash marks and went in the net? And how did you point to him? How would they know, with the rink being 190 by 85 feet wide, that you were pointing to the right guy?
Well, that's what I said. I knew how to spell Gartner because that's all I ever saw was the back of his jersey. But you know what? When you guys have played hockey, and I'm so glad now that you got the videos and it's for goal scoring. But back in those times, we weren't able to get to the net all the time. But if a puck is in the net, the best way to tell, it's a shooter. The shooter has the absolute best view of anybody in the building. And a lot of times that, we didn't see it go in, but you could really rely on what the shooter has. Mike Gartz, you can, I hope you can atone to that, because when you shoot, you know where it's going, where it went. And, but I didn't see Mike smile very often, but I saw the back of his jersey a lot.
Well, what's funny, Ronnie, too, because I was just watching the other night, and I think it was the Toronto-Winnipeg game. I'm not sure. It was literally just the other night, and a shot came, and they weren't sure whether it was in, but the guy who shot it, I think it was on Winnipeg, I forget who it was, he had his hands in the air, and before you could kind of see it, I thought to myself, well, that puck's in, because that guy knows that puck went in the net. And sure enough, they blow the whistle a little bit later. They show it the replay, and sure enough, it goes under the bar and comes out really quickly. But you're right. The guy who shoots the puck generally knows, and the goalies always think that the puck never went in the net, of course, right? So,
except when you had guys like Basil McRae, when you go back when those some of the guys who were a little tougher around the edges, sometimes they shoot and put their hands in the air, and I knew darn well that he was trying to fake me out, because there was lots of guys like that.
Trying to trick you. Well, Ron, we're going to hopefully have a couple questions, and for you or Garch or Sarah, or about Redwood as we finish up here. But one, I just wanted to say thank you very much. When I called you the other day, you just said to me, Dave, what do you need? I'm there for you. Just let me know what day, what time, and I'm in. And I don't know that you made the right call on the ice all the time, but you always answer the call when you're called upon to help out in this community. And that's greatly appreciated by everybody. And I've witnessed it several times, whether it's been with Easter Seals, the Rotary Club, this year, Dancing with the Stars, when you were doing that with Easter Seals, you're there. And it's greatly appreciated. So on behalf of all of us here involved with Hockey Helps the Homeless and our community, thank you for everything that you do to make the community as great as it is. So I would like to turn it over to Scott and Laura. If there's any questions at all, we'll get you to direct those to whoever. And then Scott, once we get through that, I'll just let you sign off once we're done. So over to you.
No problem. Thanks, Dave. We have some questions here already. So our first one from Matthew O'Connell. Question for the nonprofit charity leader / angel, Sara. Couldn't have said that any better. What role could we play in supporting the tiny shelters and the City of Toronto saying these are against bylaws? What is your position for the well-being of homelessness right now? Do we sign and send petitions and GoFundMe to support those creating them, or are they part of the problem in your support? And again, thank you for all that you are doing.
Thank you. All housing options are options for us. We've seen some really great projects that have come out of tiny homes and tiny shelters. If it's better than doing nothing is the way that we kind of look at it. I don't know if many of you have seen, but in London, Ontario, what they did was they took some of the garden sheds that we would buy for our backyards and put them onto a piece of property and insulated them, and people insulate them, bring power to them, and they've literally made them into tiny homes. So it's frustrating sometimes because municipalities will, there's definitely guidelines that they need to follow and stuff, but sometimes those guidelines need to be revisited too. Especially when it's erring on the greater good of humankind and life-saving supports for people. So when we see things like these tiny shelters and that I would always say absolutely support it. Connect with your municipal leaders and advocate for better changes in bylaws to at least look at different options. Our final solution would always want to be stable and secure housing. The beautiful housing that Redwood's building and community builders and lots of other people around those smaller purpose-built housing. But it also is about getting creative and not just walking away from just some creative solutions to homelessness. So I think that's something that we can all get behind and just advocate for the municipalities to look at those bylaws for the greater good of humankind.
Super. Thank you. And I have to say that question actually came from Jacqueline Tyler, who's a colleague of Justin Thompson's at Allaire Homes. So thank you for that, Jacqueline, and the support from Allaire.
Yeah.
Question to Mr. Hoggarth from our Executive Director, Andrew Gucciardi. I'm going to add to that question too. What are your thoughts on replay? And I'd like to ask myself, who is the most difficult coach that you had to deal with, you think, in your career?
Okay, my answer to the most difficult coach, I think, was probably all of them. But you know what? I got along. Pat Burns was boisterous, but Terry Murray. I think the Murray family, for some reason, they were kind of difficult to deal with. But you know what? That's something that is dealing with the coaches. I remember Pat Quinn. Before he passed away, he was in Toronto, one of the NHL Hall of Fame games, and he says, "You know what? You're not a bad guy now, because they're so intense when they're on the ice. It's all about winning." And it was, again, as Mike said, I built a rapport with them. As far as the replay go, I think it's absolutely right. We have so much technology, so much ability, just do it right. I am not big on what they, when they do the replay, and thank goodness that the offside, was too close. Let the game be played. As far as, the replay with the goalie interference and things, I think it's just too much sometimes. But the scoring of the goals, we have the technology. The game has changed, technology has changed, and it's an absolute must now.
That's great. Thanks, Ron. Going to turn it back over to Sara. A few more questions for you, my friend. Sara, first and foremost, has the vaccine been made available to the facility? I know both frontline workers, in addition to the residents. Has that been made available as of yet in Barrie?
So we have been fortunate. We were added kind of a little bit after, but we were added for our staff to get the vaccine as of last week. Anyone that did choose to get the vaccine in our staff team has been vaccinated in their first dose. So that was really great, and definitely a big relief for a big part of our team. Some people chose not to as well for whatever reason, but I think about 90% of our staff are vaccinated now. The challenge is that they have not made it available to our participants yet. That's something that we continue to advocate for because it is a vulnerable population. We are seeing a lot of seniors and a lot of people with different health vulnerabilities, so that's kind of scary. But I am very happy to say that after a full year almost of facilitating this through this pandemic at the hotel, we are still 100% COVID free. The practices and protocols that we've put in place to make sure that people stay safe has actually been modeled throughout our county and into other areas. And so far we are still 0 cases. So we are hoping that the vaccines will be coming for our individuals very soon.
Fantastic news, and congrats and kudos to you and your team for being able to persevere through all this the last year and not being having any infections or whatnot through the course of the year. It's phenomenal. A couple more questions to you, Sara. Can you take donations of new socks or other items at this time if folks were able to collect them? And in addition to that, do you need more PPE, and is there an opportunity to donate items like that at this time? Yeah, so we are we're trying to be very careful with donations and stuff. Again, just trying to limit transactions. We definitely always need socks, which is just, everybody knows that socks just are a never ending battle with us. So if anybody wants to email myself directly, Sara, Sara @busbycenter.ca, we can definitely set something up to drop off those donations in a safe way. And we are never turning away PPE because when you have 80 staff and all the participants that we're seeing, we are going through quite a bit of PPE. So yes, we will never say no to PPE. So same email address, and we will definitely set something up. And thank you to Jen for popping Sara's email address into the chat room there. Question to Ron, and I'm going to say when Ron's done, maybe we get an answer from Mr. Gartner as well. But best post-game party city. Great question, Justin.
I was in Montreal at the All-Star game, and Mike Gartner was the most valuable player, as a matter of fact. And I think it was Michel Goulet. We were out late in the evening, was in Montreal having some adult beverages. And the next night, Goulet said to me, he says, "No wonder Mike won the game tonight." He said he was the only guy home in bed by 9. So Mike was a real Judas. That was from your buddy Michel Goulet. But Montreal is a pretty good party city. I will admit that one.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and I would definitely be the wrong guy to ask, Scott. I thought it was great coming out when I played in Phoenix after we came out and I met my family outside and it was 85 degrees out. I thought that's awesome.
Brad Davidson, the Lafleur Dogs in Montreal, without a doubt, love those things too. Question that Ron, once again, I know we're a few minutes past 8, but folks wanted to stay on. What arena had the best food? Mike or Ron, whether either of you want to answer that. And Mike, a question to you too. Who was your hardest working teammate?
Good question. So back in the old Quebec Coliseum.
Oh, absolutely.
we used to get there. We used to get there early, so you can imagine some pro hockey players coming in about 2.5 hours before the game. We've had our pregame meal like an hour before, and guys would just be in line because they'd just be putting the hot dogs in the chachos in these really great little buns, you know, and they had these hot dogs, and guys would be taking all these hot dogs into the dressing room and firing a couple of hot dogs down before the game. And I don't know, Quebec was, maybe we didn't play all that well. I wonder why. Hardest working teammate, certainly I had a lot of hardworking teammates, you know, whether it be a guy like Chris King that I played with, or Adam Graves, to guys like Jan Eriksson. But I have a lot of guys that I have a lot of respect for that worked extremely hard. And I say those kind of guys because those guys that maybe didn't have quite as much talent, everybody works hard to play in the National Hockey League. But when you get guys that haven't been given the natural ability or the talent, and yet they eke out like long NHL careers, there's a reason for that, and it's because they work so hard. Did you ever have any of those hot dogs in Quebec, Hoagie?
You know what? I one night before the show Chen, the two lines, we sneak up and grab the hot dog show Chen, and we're walking down the hall, and Marcel Aubu, the owner of the team, comes around the corner and catches, and we got mustard all over our hands. They were great. But I'll tell you, like, things have changed now, Mike. I went down to see the referees and at the Air Canada Center Scotia place. Now they have almost like a full buffet after the game. You know, if we got a beer and a pop and maybe a sandwich, but times have changed. You know, the guys getting on the airplane now, having sushi on the charters. I don't think you had those back then.
No, but I tell you, you said you saw Marcel Aubu. Marcel was on the negotiating committee. I was on the negotiating committee for the NHL Players Association. And we had some negotiating sessions, and Marcel Aubu was on the negotiating team for the owners. And all I can say is, if Marcel was coming and he bumped into you coming away from the hot dog, I can tell you right now, Marcel had a few hot dogs himself.
He was heading to the stand. Yes, he was.
Yeah.
All right, I got a couple of stock questions here. I know we're a few minutes over, but Mike, want to ask, what was your first game like in the NHL, and how do you think your style of play during your career would stack up in today's game?
Yeah, I remember one of my most memorable times, two things. I was playing in the WHA because I couldn't play in the NHL at that time because it was a 20-year-old draft. So when I was 18, I played in Cincinnati. And the first shift that I played was an exhibition game, and we were playing against Pittsburgh at the Riverfront Coliseum in Cincinnati. And whom I lined up against was Dave Schultz. So somebody that I had kind of watched, on TV with the big, the Broad Street Bullies. Dave Schultz was playing for Pittsburgh at that time, and my first shift was against Dave Schultz. And then in the NHL, one of the most memorable things, I don't think it was my first game, but was about my second or third game. I was in Washington, and we're playing against the Montreal Canadiens. And I look across, and there's Guy Lafleur, and I'm on the same ice as Guy Lafleur. And for me, it was just a realization, like, I'm actually playing in the National Hockey League here, because there's Guy Lafleur right there. I watched Guy Lafleur for 10 years before I stepped foot on the ice. So those were two very memorable times for me.
Fantastic. I don't know if anybody else has any questions. By all means, you feel free to unmute if you just want to ask a question of anybody on our panel, even Dave McCullough, by all means.
Oh, I hope you know that Dave McCullough was a pretty good hockey player. He actually, the London Knights. So what was your career like in London, Dave?
So you're on mute, Dave. I apologize.
Yeah, oh, there you go. I was hoping that everyone would just ignore the question, but yeah, yeah, Bill Long. I'll tell you how it all started. But in junior hockey, they come and visit the players when they've been drafted. And Bill Long comes to our door on Jane Crescent, knocks on the door and sees my dad, Bill McCullough. He goes, "Oh, Bill, if I knew he was your son, I wouldn't have drafted him." But my dad played for Bill. My dad played for Bill Long in Barrie, Ontario in the 40s. Anyways, and London was always famous for drafting a Barrie player as late as I went. And after that, London has never taken a Barrie player after me. But he sent me home twice with a bus. Drove down with Jimmy Hamilton twice and came home on the bus twice. Thanks for bringing that up, Hoagie.
That's phenomenal.
I think
Again, I want to exactly, sir. I want to extend a sincere thank you to Sara for not only taking the time out of your night when we know you're going to head right back to work, but again, a sincere thank you to you and your team for doing what you do on a daily basis. Again, you guys are the real heroes through all this right now, and I think many of us on the phone, and I know the team at Hockey Helps are just fortunate to play a small part to try and assist where we can. So again, a huge thank you to you. Thank you to Ron for joining us tonight, and certainly want to see if we can get you involved as we continue and get back on the ice, hopefully going forward. But thank you for sharing some of your stories and anecdotes with us tonight. Great to hear you, and we know you're a true advocate for all good things in Barrie. So again, a sincere appreciation to you for joining us tonight. So thank you. Mr. Gartner, Mr. McCullough, again, we've got the great fortune of working with you guys on a regular basis on our local organizing committee in Barrie. And really, everybody, thank you for taking the time to join us tonight. A little something different to do for an hour on a Wednesday night. But again, a thanks to all of you for being game changers in the fight to end homelessness. We know that we didn't have all of our players on tonight, but want to really continue to advise everybody of that, like obviously the continuing need for support here in Barrie, and every dollar really does help. Everybody's in a different situation these days with their ability to give or ability to ask friends, family, and colleagues to support an initiative like the Canada Life Cup. But again, without the support of people like yourself, we can't continue to do what we do, and that is rallying around our partner beneficiaries and those like Redwood and Busby and Barrie. So we've got again 21 days left in the Canada Life Cup. By all means, feel free to share if you were a part of this tonight with your teammates or former teammates or friends, family, and others in the community that even want to make a $25 donation to your page or even to the tournament itself. Again, every dollar helps, and I think Sara did a great job of explaining how great the need still is, even a year into this pandemic. So without further ado, we will sign off and say goodnight. But again, a sincere thanks to everybody for joining us.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Thanks,
Josh.
Hoagie.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, Sara. Gart. Good night.
Thanks all. Take care.